We'll show you what we've come to know on board while sailing wisdom.
Ah, what a glorious, glorious night of sleep. We're so far from everything. There aren't even bugs out here. And we're gonna get ourselves to the top end of the Alligator River. It's about 18 more miles. The only issue is our batteries are dead. We have no more charge left. We used up all our charge yesterday in getting here. We're about 300 amp hours down. So there's not much left in them. But thankfully, this is where solar wins over diesel. When you're out of diesel, you're out until you find another place that has diesel. When you're out of power, you just have to wait for the sun to come around. So we're currently charging at 10 amps. So that's putting in a lot of power. And we're just gonna sail today and charge the whole way. So by the time we get there, we'll have generated probably about 60 amp hours. And that's just free power. So we'll just keep charging and not use the motor and rely on our sails more. Now, if we need to, we can always motor at 10 amps while the solar panels are putting in 10 amps. And then we're really not draining anything from the batteries and we're just running purely off the solar panels.
Train ride just to see you, ride for hours just to please you. You don't know how much I need you, 'cause you're my home away from...
Right now we're kind of sailing in between gusts of wind.
Okay, we are sailing along at about 3 knots and the solar panels are putting in 14 amps. Even though this is a huge wide river, it's got a tiny, tiny little channel and you have to stay in the channel or you come to a quick halt. The effect wind has over water is really impressive. So the wind here is very, very light, but there's a lot of distance for the wind to interact with the water over. So we're sailing 18 miles up this river. That means that there's 18 miles that the wind is pushing over the water. And over that distance, a very gentle breeze in the beginning is only bothering the water just a little bit. But as it goes further and further with more and more miles, the wind has more time to interact with the water, and then the water has more time to react to the wind. So what that means is you get more waves. So even though it's blowing very little, we're already starting to get a lot of waves, and we're only 6 miles in. So that whole distance over the water business, that's called fetch. And that's why if you're anchored right up near a shore and the wind's blowing off the shore, it can be blowing really hard, you're not gonna have that big of seas. You get further away from the shore, the wind has more time to interact with the water, and then the waves are a whole lot bigger. Being how this water is very shallow, the waves can't really get very tall, but they do stay close. So you get a lot of choppy little waves that just, you know, and they just hit you.
This has been such a beautiful day of sailing, and we're so lucky too that we have been able to sail. Once we got into the Alligator River, all the wind picked up and we barely run the motor today. I mean, like, just a tiny bit in the beginning. And really low power, yeah. So we've just been charging all day. Charging while moving. That's the name of the game. I just radioed the Alligator River swing bridge so that we can cross through it, and it reminded me of something that a lot of you have brought up before, and that's our Tanbark Sails. Why do we have Tanbark Sails and not just white sails like normal people? And there are a few reasons, but one of the biggest ones just came up, and that was when I radioed I said, this is Sailing Vessel Wisdom, we're approaching channel marker 16, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, the bridge tender said, are you the sailing vessel with red sails? And I said, yes. And that was the end of that. He knew exactly who we were. And that's the thing. We're so easily identifiable, especially over radio. And it's just been a really nice advantage over the course of this whole cruising trip, is being able to say, we're the one with red sails, off your starboard bow, blah, 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 blah. And boom, they know exactly who we are. So we just finished up our 18-mile run, and it was a full sail the whole way, which was fantastic. But unfortunately, the anchorage we've chosen is not very feasible for the night. It's very, very rolly, and I get super seasick, and the bow is just crashing into the waves, so it's not going to be good. But we are going to stay here for a sec because Herbie's going to take Morty to shore. The thing that really makes it frustrating for us to find anchorages is actually Morty. Now, of course, it's completely worth it to have him aboard, but having a dog that needs to go to shore in order to do his business really limits the amount of anchorages that we can find. So we chose this anchorage because it's right across from a marina where you can dock and take your dog, but unfortunately, it's so bad out here. This is for you, Morty. This is all for you.
Well, this last bit is spirited. We are booking it. We're doing 5 to 6 knots. We're on a gorgeous beam reach. I'm loving it. Maddie's taking care of the birds.
I'm basically just a bird gimbal right now.
But we'll get there soon, and then we'll be anchored in the lee of the land, and hopefully we won't have all this swell that was rolling us, because when I took Maury to shore there, it was awful. How's the motion here, babe?
It's alright. It's not great, but it's a lot better than where we were.
We'll go a little further in, see if it gets better.
Well, we're anchored a second time.
Yeah.
This is much better.
So much. It was 100 feet of chain to pull in for the first anchoring, but it was worth it because we were getting tossed around.
Yeah, that wasn't good. This is not ideal either, honestly, where we are, but
No.
it is significantly better, and we'll be able to cook and sleep, and Charlie's going.
Walking. Yep. Yeah, just making our way. We had anchored at
Yeah.
the bottom of the Alligator River. Now we anchored at the top of the Alligator River. And tomorrow we leave the Alligator River.
Success.
The wind here is so nice. There's no fetch, so there's not much rolling around, but there's just that gentle motion that just lulls you to sleep. So I'm really looking forward to sleeping. And then there's this really cool breeze just coming through the boat, through the hatches. So it's gonna be a really nice night. Now the cool part, when we left this morning, we had 0% charge because the batteries were done. We motored that canal and we were out of juice. But unlike a diesel, which when your tank's empty, and you have to find a fuel dock to get more fuel in your tank, with the electric, our day of sailing charged us up. So the solar panels put in power. So now here we are, it's midnight, we're going to bed. We've had the lights on in the boat all night long. And our batteries have 9% charge, which sounds like nothing. But imagine if just sailing on a sunny day, you could put 1/10 of your gas tank back. That's what happened here. So that's really cool. Tomorrow's gonna be another 18-mile sail. All sailing, big open waters. So we don't need to use the motor at all, so we'll just charge up even more.
You tell me you're scared. You tell me you're weak. But I know you're stronger than what you think. And I know it's hard. It's rough, but we'll make it through, and I'll back you up. Wherever you're going, I'm going too. I'll follow you through the and the blue. Whatever the mountain, we'll climb to the next. Honey, I'm with you through life and to death. You tell me you're nervous. You say you're afraid. I wish you could see that. I think you're brave. And if it all falls, if it all breaks, I'll still be here.
We'll be sailing off anchor, sailing 18 miles to our next destination and dropping the hook, probably under sail again. We're starting off at 15% charge because the solar panels have been working since the sun came up. It's quite nice. So the electric, it gives you this incredible flexibility where if you need the power, you have it. If you don't need the power, you just keep making more. Good.
But not. He is very slimy.
Yeah, he's a frog.
He has mucus.
What'd you get there?
He has secreted his mucus. I have a frog that's been trapped on our deck for many days. And he's been making noises.
I got an idea. We put him in the dinghy. He won't be bothered by us. We can find him later if he hasn't hopped out.
He's gonna hop out and get eaten.
No. But it's a river.
I don't know what to do.
Well, you could put him back in the canvas on the bow. He was happy up there for days.
Yeah, but he's probably really thirsty.
We've had a lot of dew and a lot of bugs.
Have we?
We have, every night. It's
Right.
very dewy. Think about it, he's been living for days on this boat.
Yeah.
So he's found a way. A stowaway.
Fix these mistakes. Wherever you're going, I'm going to. I'll follow you through the black and the blue. Wherever the mountain, we'll climb to the next. Honey, I'm with you.
catamaran with those funky masts, they're actually called wing masts. And the idea is your sails create an airfoil. And that airfoil creates lift, which then propels your boat. Why have a sail do that when you could have the exact perfect shape in a solid? So that is the idea of a wing mast. The mast itself is a wing. And then it pivots and it rotates to be at the perfect angle to the wind, so that way you get the most drive you can possibly get out of your boat.
The only issue with that kind of setup is that once you have a solid permanent fixture, you can't reef it. So there's no way to drop your sail in really heavy weather. You have to deal with that windage. So that's the only disadvantage, but it was really cool seeing it that close up. I've never seen one in real life. All right, we can go. I'm going. Driving. Just going slowly. Okay.
This really feels like being back out in the ocean. And we change our course simply to sail around or away from big storms. So we got a giant rain thing over there that we did a nice broad reach over this way to go away from. And now it's passed. And now that one's coming up behind us. So we're doing a broad reach back that way to get out of its way. So we're just making our way. The water here is 16 feet deep everywhere. So with that, we don't really need to worry about depth. So it's just pick our direction based on the clouds, with the general direction of getting towards our next river.
I'll take you where the sun is always shining. A bite of the apple found in Eden. Oh, 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 man is never sleeping. Are you up for the night? For a sweet stimulation, guess this is your station. Better than the country, welcome to the city. But the girls are pretty.
We've been using our electric outboard for about a year now, and I have to say, this sucker is great. No oil changes, no oil to check, no fuel to worry about, no getting water in your fuel or dirty fuel or any of that issue. It just works. You got power, you go. You don't have power, you row. To charge this sucker, since the battery weighs 40 pounds, that's a considerable weight to be lifting in and out. I don't want to have to do that. So I have leads that go from the boat into the dinghy. And then a little switch in the boat that turns on a step-down converter, which takes our battery power and steps it, in our case, down to 24 volts. But if you have a 12-volt boat, steps it up to 24 volts for you. And it charges the battery, gets everything nice and happy, and then that's it. The dinghy runs off solar panels because that's where we get our power from. So it's been really awesome. We're in places, we're doing dinghy rides, we're doing lots of trips. We never have to worry about carrying enough fuel or buying fuel or any of that issue. We can control everything from the phone through a BMS, and we can see exactly what our status is. And then we can also tweak little parameters. I have the battery set pretty conservatively, so if it's out of power, it cuts off. But then you can tweak a couple little parameters and make the battery give up a couple more amp hours. And then you have the amps to get you home, and you don't have to row as much.
We're really excited to be in Virginia because our next stop is Norfolk, and that's the beginning of the Chesapeake Bay.
Yesterday we sailed from Portsmouth to Norfolk, and while for me it was just the coolest thing ever because I'm a huge nerd for Navy ships.
Thanks for watching this episode of Sailing Wisdom. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next Rigging Doctor episode. And if If you're interested in even more Rigging Doctor awesomeness, consider becoming a patron to see all of our extras. Can't wait to see you next time as you join us out here on the high seas.